doing? How you feeling? Peace and love, y'all. Peace and love. Peace and love. Every time when I come on here, I get nervous. I'm not gonna lie. Every time I get on here, and this is episode number 20. I hope I put it in there. So I have done this 20 times, and each time it feels like the first time. I'm nervous. I'll be nervous. I'm like, I hope this goes right. And I'm excited at the same time. That intro, man, it just gets me hype. It just takes me out of any kind of mood that I could be in. And it puts me in a good space. And my son did that for me. And I just really feel like that is my personality. Hey, and then my grandbaby's on there. She's like, Z Swag. Which it goes like this: Z Swag, you still making beats again? Mm-hmm. Which she's much older now. Anyway, well, not much older, but she's older now. She's not such a little baby. She's grown into a fine young lady, very smart, very talented. So, anyway, I am happy to be here. Um, with that being said, so today's topic is the real ID. Okay, the real ID, which is something that they want all of us to have in order to get on the plane to fly to local states, not to fly out of the country or anything like that, just to fly locally, in the states of the United States. And some of it is like, so you're gonna have to have it to get into court buildings and different stuff like that. So that's what we're gonna talk about today's. That's today's highlight, today's topic. But I also wanted to just go over some little things with you all too as we continue to build this relationship together with one another. Today, what you're experiencing is what you call a podcast, everyone. And it's for your listening ears. You do not have a lot of visuals here, where I'm sitting here like at my desk and you get to see me and all of this type of stuff. And I might have a chair right here for another guest or whatever. That's not what we're doing here on this particular podcast, okay? What we doing here, because so far, the listeners that I do have, my subscribers, and I'm going to call you all family. I don't have a name yet. I have some people go, yeah, what's up, fam? That's cool. Because I'd rather say family and fam before, people go, I got 34 followers, I got 34 fans, I got 34 whatever we want to call each other. I'm calling you all family. And y'all my first road dogs coming out here with me. My 34 listeners are everybody that I know personally. Okay. And it's going to get to the point, and this stuff takes time, that I'm going to build up and I'm going to have a lot of listeners. Maybe we can say that too, listeners. And I'm not going to know everybody. So, and that's going to require putting in work. Okay. And the reason that I choose not to show myself is not because I'm afraid to show myself. I'm a busy woman. Okay. Just like you all are busy men and women that's out there. So a lot of my listeners are working people. And so the thing is you can have your earpiece in your ear and listen, or you driving down the road listening, whatever you're doing. I listen myself while working, and I put the earpiece in my ear. I mean, I operate off of the earpiece in my ear. So anyway, that's what this is about. It's a podcast. Then I throw in some little visuals here and there just to keep it interesting, okay? And plus I have a lot of fun with all my little bells and whistles. Now, as I continue to move forward, because I'm going to do another channel so that I can keep my channels in perspective, which people do have more than one channel. So, and it'll branch out. Right now, I'm just doing it. I'm getting started because I've been wanting to do this for a long, long time. When um, we're gonna say that C word, because one time you couldn't even say that on the internet. You would get blocked out. You would get blocked out. So that, with that being said, let that lead us into our conversation. So, but before I get started, you all know the drill. And it's important that you do it so that I can get into the algorithm. I can do that with my 34 people that's listening, right? You can hit like, all this stuff is free. You can hit like, you can hit the subscribe button. When you hit the subscribe button, and let me see if I can pull up my YouTube so I can show you where it's at and tell you about it. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. You're really not subscribing to anything where you are like putting in any information. Basically, you're just letting this YouTube know that, hey, I like Tanya, and I'm gonna hit that subscribe button. So when she come on, you all will notify me that she's on, whether I'm live or whether I make a pre-recorded video. This is live. It's not a pre-recorded video. I'm live. So don't get to do no editing or nothing like that. Any mistakes that I make is on and popping. I can't take it back. It's here. When I push that button to come in, which I like to call it my back office. So I'm here in the back office and I'm live. I'm not doing a pre-recorded. It's almost like a TV show. And when it's live, like a Broadway play, that's live. And you can't take away a mistake. It is what it is. But like, hey, you at a recording studio and it's not live and the actors and stuff making mistakes. They get to edit that out and like take one, you know, take two, take three. Let's do it right. Get your line right. Will you get your line right? Stuff like that. That's pre-recorded. So I'm live. So that's what it is. So I can't take away a mistake that I make. So if you hit the subscribe button, it's like I like her. I want to hear when she comes on. Most of the time, like I said, I'm live all the time. I'm all the way live. And so whatever I do, like I said, I can't make no mistakes. I can't take them away. Hit that bell, you get that notification. And that's just what it is. And this information that I'm going to be doing today, you could hit that share button and pass this information on, right? You can pass it on. I'm going to do some reactions to some videos, and we are here to learn together. Like I said, I'm no scholar, and I don't sit here and act like I'm a know-it-all. I'm trying to just stay in tune the best that I can and what's happening in this fast paced moving world that really don't have me and my family or you all in mind for any goodness. We are all here to be used. That's what I feel like. Could be harsh. Some of y'all might not believe it. And this is all a matter of opinion. And I'm putting off my opinion. Okay? And I'm sharing it with you. I also have created a phone number that I'm going to open the lines up where you can call in and say what you feel. Okay? And let me say this too to clear up everything. I am not a diehard Democrat nor Republican. I am an independent person that thinks on my own. Okay? That's what I do. So I don't sit here and think this party is better than no other person party. We talking about people's actions. And when I talk about 47, I talk about him a lot because why not? He is the president and he's making the rules and stuff. Is he making rules that I think is fair? No, I do not. Is he doing some things that I think is kind of all right? Yes, he is. Okay. Do I like them or hate them? I ain't got nothing. I'm trying to tell you what's going on and how I feel about that particular thing. Do I like Harris and Biden and all of them Democrats? I ain't got no connection with them neither. I'm just here to talk about what's happening. Okay, so let's get that part straight too. All right, so I said I wanted to do this channel when the C thing was happening. And I'm talking about control. When it first came out, that C, the 19, that's what we're going to call it, CV19. You know what I'm talking about? The needle thing. You could not say that word on YouTube. People that was making money and being making money, let's just say that they was making money. If they said that word, they'll get demonetized. And it was like, why you can't say the word? That's the government trying to control you. I mean, like you should be able to say the word without it being an issue. So we're gonna talk about the real ID. Cause is that part of the system? Is that part of the system? So we're gonna get started with that because I don't have mine yet. I and I'm not anxious to go and get it. So like the CV19, when that thing hit, I mean, and it was scaring everybody. Everybody, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, what? You know, when it finally got here, which to me, they let it get here, like it's so much myth and conspiracy about where did it come from, how did it get here, blah blah blah. But when it finally made its place here in the United States, and then like it's here, which I think it could have been avoided, but what do I know? They said, go get the shot. Look, I said it, go get the thing. Go get the needle. I think you could used to say that. Go get the needle. Go get the thingy thing. And if you don't get it, you're gonna lose your job and you're gonna do this and do that, and you're gonna die, blah, 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 blah. They made up so many things. They scared the people. And people went and got this thing before they even knew what it was about. They was in the laboratory. Remember, they was talking about they making it up, putting the ingredients together. Oh, it's ready now. So you're going to be able to go different places and go get it so that you will be safe, and things were still happening. To me, they pressured the people to go get it. And then when people started to not respond to it and stuff like that, and it was like, well, you don't have your job. And some people had to give you your job back anyway because the job couldn't function without the workers. So I'm saying all of that to say, now here we go with the real ID. So everybody's rushing to go get the real ID, saying, "Oh, you won't be able to fly, and you won't be able to do this, and you won't be able to do that. Let me go get that." And I'm going to start off this conversation is with the 10 worst things that the government has done, and it's for black folks, but for all folks, to me, Can you trust these people like that? Everything they say? This world is not set up with us in mind for the betterment of the people. You're not. It's set up for the others. You're here to help them reach their goals. They're not here to help you obtain your goals. You are there to help them obtain their goals. So I'm going to start this presentation podcast with this video first. Let me do my disclaimers. And don't forget, hit that like, hit that bell notification, that subscribe button. You should do that when you first come in. But let me hit my disclaimers.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
All right, that's the fair use disclaimer. And then I'm going to place it right here, right up under the bottom. See, I'm learning stuff. And let's see how that goes. Because, you know, this government is so controlling. So controlling. Yeah, give me a second. And then I'm going to get this thing going. Oh, gotta go here. Put that there. All right.
The top 10 worst things the government did to Black people. For decades, the struggle to free the slaves was marked by difficult, sad, and painful moments. After abolition, everything seemed to take a completely different course. Without slaves and with equal rights for all, or so it seemed, the United States of America started to promote policies that were far from being considered fair. They continued to entrench racism against people of African descent. Today, I bring you the top 10 worst things that the United States government has done to Black people. Number 10, the Tulsa, Oklahoma Massacre. The Tulsa Massacre, which occurred in 1921 in the Greenwood, Oklahoma neighborhood, was a thriving African-American community known as Black Wall Street. The massacre began after an elevator incident between a young African-American man named Dick Rowland and a young white woman named Sarah Page. Rowland was arrested, and rumors of the incident spread quickly, fueling racial tensions in the city. The white mob, armed and supported by local authorities, attacked the African-American neighborhood of Greenwood, setting fire to homes, businesses, and buildings. It is estimated that at least 300 people, mostly African-Americans, were killed and thousands left homeless by the destruction. Local authorities failed to take adequate measures to stop the violence and, in fact, contributed to the destruction. Number 9. May 18, 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson. On May 18, 1896, in the case of Plessy versus Ferguson, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it was legal to have separate public facilities for blacks and whites as long as they were equal. This led to segregation in public places for many years, until it was overturned in the 1950s. This decision legalized racial discrimination and caused serious problems in the struggle for equality. Number 8.
And that's what 47 want to. He already got that in the works. Segregation. He wants that back. That's part of making America great again.
Syphilis. In the past, even when a treatment for syphilis existed, many African Americans were left to die from the disease. Although drugs were available to cure syphilis, researchers in the Tuskegee syphilis study, conducted from 1932 to 1972, did not adequately treat African Americans with the disease. The participants, mostly poor African Americans, did not receive adequate treatment even after penicillin became an effective cure in the 1940s. Number 7. Yellow fever in Philadelphia. In 1793, a serious disease called yellow fever struck Philadelphia, causing much fear and death. Yellow fever is spread by mosquitoes and could be fatal. Although the disease affected people of all races equally, the black community was unfairly blamed for the spread of yellow fever. Segregationist measures were implemented, such as the mandatory quarantine of blacks in the city. In addition, blacks who assisted in the medical care and treatment of the sick were treated with suspicion and often assigned dangerous and unrecognized tasks. Number 6. Religious imposition. Most indigenous communities were forced to believe in certain religions, and black were no exception. African Americans were often forced to adopt the religion of those who colonized or enslaved them. This was not only an attempt to impose control, but also a way to justify slavery and racial discrimination. Number 5. The AIDS epidemic. Another example would be during the AIDS epidemic, where blacks, like most issues in America, had the highest mortality rate from the disease. Hospitals did not provide them with medical help or consultations due to racial idealization. Number 4. Modern genocide. Something we cannot overlook is the genocide against black people, which refers to persistent patterns of violence, discrimination, and inequality faced by black communities in several countries. This includes police violence, discrimination in the justice system, disparities in education, and limited access to economic opportunities.
All right. And that's what he 47 doing too. All them executive orders he got rolling out, unleashing the police, the schools, taking away DEI, all that type of stuff. So when you sit and go, oh, you think I'm a diehard Democrat, or I'm like a Republican, I'm a human being. That's what I am. And I believe in equality and human decency. None of this should have ever been a problem. Like, everything that we have heard so far is unnecessary. We shouldn't even be having to deal with that. And then we got a government that's in control of everything, that's allowing this to happen. We got presidents and all kinds of things in place. It shouldn't be nothing like right here what we watching. We march for integrated schools now. We demand decent housing now. Like, we demand equal rights now. No, you should just have it. You shouldn't have to demand for that, especially when you got a government in place. So I'm showing you to show you that if you have a government in place, why is all this necessary? So now the government has said, get your real ID. Let's just finish this off, and we're going to keep it moving.
These issues have led to protests and movements such as Black Lives Matter, which fight racial injustice and advocate for equality. Number 3, the crack epidemic. And let's not forget, there was the crack epidemic, which was an increase in the use of crack cocaine in the 1980s and 1990s released into black communities by the United States government. This epidemic disproportionately affected black communities in the United States. Many blacks were arrested and incarcerated due to harsh anti-drug laws, which led to prison overcrowding. In addition, the crack epidemic contributed to violence and instability in these communities, affecting families and employment opportunities. For the most part, blacks were arrested because of stereotypes that blacks were the ones who stole and used drugs in large numbers. Number 2, of course, without slaves.
Yeah, so, and that was bad. I messed that up. I'm going to try to see if we can get back to it. Yeah, but yeah, and that's a whole nother segment. If you do not understand the war on drugs that they created for the black folks, then we're going to have to go there too. So let's just continue on. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Huh? Are you seeing and hearing what I'm hearing?
Blacks were arrested because of stereotypes that blacks were the ones who stole and used drugs in large numbers. Number 2, slavery. And as part of one of the aberrations that white supremacy did to black people, there was slavery. Back in the 19th century, many African Americans and mostly African people were taken as pets and laborers, in addition to being treated with physical abuse such as whippings, lack of food, abuse, and experimentation, among many others. Number 1.
Hold on. So that too, and now what the government is doing, we had black folks with slaves, but we all slaves now. They slaving the whole United Nation, okay, the United States. So all of us, y'all slaves. You a slave, I'm a slave, everybody, you a slave to debt. That's what you are. When you get out here and you go working for all these goods and stuff, you're keeping the economy. You are the economy, keeping it going, okay?
Colonization, Africa's struggle. It all, even slavery, began with colonization. The Europeans wanted to expand all over the world and create colonies, so little by little they took indigenous peoples, blacks, and other types of races. An example of this would be the human zoos, where after their successful colonization, they took most of the inhabitants as prizes and exhibited them as animals in cages. Despite all this, the civil rights movements, protests against police brutality, and ongoing activism have exposed the depths of racial discrimination. As societies evolve, a new consciousness emerges, along with a genuine desire for change and a collective determination to dismantle racist structures. Do you agree with our list? What event in American Black history did we miss? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos. See you next time.
All right, you see it? I left it on so that you can see about hitting that like button for them. You got to go all the way over there to that website, but I left it up, and I also put it in the comments where you can just go over there, hit the link, and watch the video for yourself. And by no means I take any credit for this video that we have just watched. I am responding and reacting to the video for purposes of, I can't say the word right, commentary. All right? We're teaching and talking. So, do you trust the government? Do you trust the government or what? So, let's keep it moving. That was good.
Nearly 2 decades of implementation and delays, the federal government's new identification requirements for traveling by plane domestically or entering federal buildings technically go into effect. This federally compliant ID card, known as Real ID, can only be attained with specific records and documents laid out by the federal government. It's labeled by a black or gold star in the upper right corner. Even though DHS Secretary Kristi Noem promised that, at least initially, people without a Real ID will only have to face some extra scrutiny at security checkpoints, it's safe to assume that, as the full requirement sets in over the next several weeks and months, some number of people will show up to airports unaware that they no longer have the documents required to board their plane. And because the process of getting through most domestic airports was grueling enough before the deadline, many expect air travel to be especially arduous during the transition. Because of the absoluteness of this new requirement and the harsh punishment for noncompliance, just picture what would happen to you if you tried to get into a federal building or onto a plane without the accepted forms of ID. It can be easy to write off the Real ID requirement as some new rule that, while annoying, is probably being implemented for a good reason. It's not. As mentioned before, the Real ID Act was passed 20 years ago in 2005. It was one of the many measures rolled out in the wake of the 9/11 attacks that was presented to the public as being necessary to ensure that similar attacks would never happen again. The original bill specified that the federal government would refuse to accept any form of ID that did not meet the requirements Congress had passed by May of 2008. But as that date drew closer, few states had implemented the new provisions. Some governors had vocally refused to comply because they opposed what was, in effect, the implementation of a national identification database. That prompted the Department of Homeland Security to delay the deadline several times, first to 2011, then a complicated range of deadlines from 2013 to 2017 based on age and state of residence, then to one universal deadline in October of 2020. Then the pandemic hit, and the deadline was extended again to 2021, then 2023, and finally to today, May 7th, 2025. If these new ID requirements were as crucial to the safety of air travelers and the American public at large as the federal government has claimed, the sheer time it's taken to implement would be unacceptable. That alone is a sign that perhaps the federal government's motivations are not what they say. And
let that soak in. Let that soak in for a minute. Just let that soak in. Moment of quietness and just think. I'm going to repeat it. If it was such an importance, 9/11 happened I think it was 2001. They put the law, it's not law, but they tried to put it into works 2005. And now it took all this time to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and make this thing go through. And no, yeah, because your boy, 47, that's what he do. He like to push stuff, pushing it to the limit. So just think about what he just said. Let me try to go back a little bit more.
Are not what they say. And indeed, if you look back at how and why the 9/11 attacks occurred, it's clear that preventing a similar attack is at most an extremely thin why the 9/11 attacks occurred. It's clear that preventing a similar attack is at most an extremely thin excuse for this new federal ID system. None of the 9/11 hijackers used fake IDs or pretended to be someone else when they checked in and boarded their flights. At the time, an ID check was only required during check-in, and the rule was not always enforced. All of the hijackers who were asked to show ID presented legitimate forms of identification, mostly foreign passports. One hijacker was flagged at check-in because he did not have a photo ID. Two other hijackers were similarly flagged by a joint FBI and FAA pre-screening system after identifying themselves. But the government's rules at the time only required the three flagged hijackers' checked luggage to be set aside until they had boarded their flights. A rule meant to prevent people from sending bombs onto flights they would then purposely miss, as is suspected to have happened in the famous 1988 Lockerbie bombing. All three hijackers were allowed to board their planes. So it's hard to see how anyone can seriously argue that some new ID requirements that would have done nothing to stop the 9/11 attacks are crucial for preventing future attacks of the same nature. The truth is that the Real ID is just the latest chapter in the federal government's 20-plus years of using 9/11 as an excuse to protect and expand its power. Washington.
Okay, soak that in. Again, I ain't even going to repeat nothing because I don't want to be throwing my thoughts in it. Just let that soak in. He making some points.
Washington could have pursued the most plausible path to avoid future 9/11s by calling off the completely unnecessary meddling it had been conducting in the Middle East. The wars our government had waged, supplied, and bankrolled in the region had first strengthened the popularity of anti-American thought among certain radical factions of Sunni Islamists. Then, Osama bin Laden was able to seize on that sentiment and use his reputation as an anti-Soviet fighter in Afghanistan to convince a couple hundred followers to adopt his strategy of targeting the U.S. directly to draw the Americans into a war like the one he thought led to the Soviet Union's collapse. Instead, American politicians and bureaucrats decided to act as though the American public security could best be protected if they first gave themselves significantly more power and then used it to try and pacify the entire Middle East with the very same methods that had just convinced 19 young men to fly planes into American buildings. And as the neoconservatives and establishment warhawks helped boost the popularity of bin Ladenite thought with over 2 decades of relentless wars, incursions, covert operations, and air campaigns, American officials also seized on the opportunity to expand their power here at home. The federal government, of course, nationalized airport security, even though the private contractors handling it before were already tasked specifically with enforcing FAA rules. And the 9/11 hijackers had not packed anything that the FAA prevented them from taking on the plane. The attack was not an airport screening failure, but now it's all handled by a group that will continue to operate in every commercial airport in the country, regardless of how abysmal it is at detecting banned items. Beyond the airport, the federal government gave itself sweeping new authorities to conduct surveillance on everyone, including American citizens, with the passage of the Patriot Act. Taking after the regime in Beijing that they love to demonize for the same reasons, federal bureaucrats in Washington built up extensive systems to monitor digital communication and track the American population with technologies like facial recognition. Real ID is the next major development in that effort. While the federal requirements as of now are limited to specific documents and a mandatory facial image capture needed to attain a state ID, the law leaves the government plenty of room to expand those requirements to include biometric identifiers in federal databases like retinal scans, fingerprints, or DNA. In other words, while the issues with the initial Real ID rollout will mostly be limited to a few occasional long waits at the DMV or airport, the bill lays the groundwork for the federal government to force anyone who wants a state ID to forfeit biometric identifiers or facial recognition data to federal databases that would constitute the kind of detailed, de facto national ID system that the biggest tyrants in history could have only dreamed of wielding. That may seem a bit far-fetched, but it's naive to think that in the aftermath of another terrorist attack, the politicians and bureaucrats who are always looking for any excuse to expand their power would not use some new powers that they already gave themselves. If we allow that day to come, we'll yearn for the days when our big problems consisted of long lines at the airport.
You see? You understood what he just said? So basically, the way I'm taking it, they done forced you again. You know, the American people, get the CV-19 or you won't have your job. Get your real ID or you won't be able to travel. Everybody ran. I think it's over 50%. More people got it than less. So now that you have gotten it, you took away your fighting power. See, that's what we promote here on this channel. We all stay independent and we think on our own. We do not hear something that we hear on the news and take off running like, oh, they said this and they said that. You know, we're going to give 47 that fake news. Like these news reporters and all this information out here. What is the truth? What is the motive? Like, what's going on? So when I hear stuff like that, that's in a mass abundance, that don't trigger me to run off and participate in what they saying we need to do. That make me go, hold up. Wait a minute. So, over 50% of people have gotten the real ID. You taking your room for negotiation away because you ran to go get it. If people didn't get it, then they'll have to. You think they're going to shut that airport down? If you do not go get your real ID so that you can take a flight, do you think they're going to say, oh, well, it shut the airport down? No, they're going to say, okay, well, what was the problem? Well, you wasn't able to get it. We'll do an extension or whatever. Like, we got to keep the airports rolling. Even when you had to get the CV-19, and they shut the world down. It only shut down for a little bit. They can't afford to have this world shut down like that. They got to keep it moving, keep the economy going. And how do you keep it going? You let the people keep it going. You think you just peons in the world, but you are the main players. You making them rich. So if you don't go get the ID, they ain't got no planes. Who flying? If you didn't get the CV-19 shot, like you're gonna lose your job. If you ain't gonna get that, what jobs they got? But you run off too fast before knowing everything or trying to think about it. You just say, oh, they said you got to go and get that real ID. You think it's for your benefit? And like they said, it's for the safety of terrorists. That happened 2001. It's 2025. Anyway, let's keep it moving. I put that video in the chat box as well. So you can go back there and check it out. Let's get to the next video. Which we're going to do another Real ID video.
Is this?
We do this training once a year. There's 800,000 to 1 million people that'll join us.
All right, well, Real ID, get ready. Are you guys ready for Real ID? The way that the government will track you, of course, will track you and do everything to make sure that they know where you are at all times of the day. This, of course, is a holdover from the Patriot Act. Well, here is your Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, to give you a warning. She dropped this public service announcement on X. Watch.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. If you plan on traveling, we need your help to prevent delays and to prove your identity. Get a Real ID. Starting May 7th, you will need a Real ID to travel by air or to visit federal buildings in the United States. These IDs keep our country safe because they help prevent fraud and they enhance security. Please do your part to protect our country. Go today and don't delay. To learn more, go to dhs.gov/real-ID. Thank you.
Now, we've been warning about the Real ID for a long time here, and now it's finally coming. A lot of Americans have already gotten it, and they don't see any trouble with it. Harrison Berger is an independent journalist. He's been on this story for a long time and is here to talk about this. Harrison, welcome to the show. Great to see you from Brazil today, from Buenos Aires. Great to see you.
From Rio de Janeiro. Yeah, thank you so much for having
Rio
me.
de Janeiro.
I was going to say Buenos Aires is in Argentina.
Argentina. My brain is sorry. I apologize. Welcome from Brazil. And so let's talk about this. Americans are sort of like blindly kind of going along with this, but this is a holdover, of course, from the Patriot Act, is it not? And why should Americans be concerned about Real ID?
It is, and in fact, it's written by the same authors, which makes sense because it's essentially trying to do the same thing, more government surveillance and control over Americans. And let me just remind people what our Fourth Amendment says, because I think we so often forget. It says that there will not be any unlawful or unreasonable searches and seizures, and it protects you against that from the federal government. But since I've been alive pretty much, because I was born in 2001, I'm 23 years old, we've had this erosion of our privacy rights and Fourth Amendment protection, starting with the Patriot Act, now with this Real ID. And so it's not surprising that that's happening right now, because the Trump administration is embracing many of the same tactics as the war on terror. We have this rendition program now where we're sending people to El Salvador. And Kristi Noem from the DHS has announced that she's going to be screening visa applicants for anti-Semitism. And so it makes sense that they're doing this, pulling this tool out of the old war on terror bag and trying to revive this old legislation now at this moment.
Can you explain more about the purpose of Real ID from a government standpoint? Not what they're telling us, but what the actual purpose is. Because Representative Thomas Massie said that this is proof that your physical person matches their entry in a database. So can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, basically the data that's printed on these IDs would all be standardized and shared with a single network. That's not what we have right now. Each state controls how they want to ID each of their citizens. That's under the 10th Amendment that we have that. This is a total reversal of that, and it's really a radical change. They want to standardize it and make it national, which makes it easier for the government to track and monitor you. Again, it makes sense why they're doing this, because this is the game that they've been playing for so long.
I mean, is Real ID?
Okay, let me look. I got a little something for that. I got a little something for that. Because this is what they're doing. This is the ultimate goal. They want to control what's happening. They want to control.
ID just really that first step towards, government controlled digital ID and putting us all on, digital currency, central bank digital currency. All the talks about what we're going to see at the border, of course, biometric scanning coming in. Like, all of us will be tracked forever. There's no way really to get away from it.
I mean, what's really amazing about this is that I thought it was conservatives who were warning about this. I remember in 2022 when it was Jim Jordan and Thomas Massie who were warning against the DHS, who at the time had the Disinformation Governance Board led by Nina Jankowicz censoring Americans. They were monitoring Americans, monitoring their school board meetings, monitoring their church attendance, all of this. And it was really Mike Johnson and Jim Jordan in Congress who made a big stink about this. But now that Trump is in charge, and
here's how I accessed $30,000 from my home to pay off debt without refinancing or new.
They have free reign to go after their political enemies. They've completely abandoned their principles, and now they're wielding the same framework against their own political enemies. It makes you wonder if we're just in this cycle where every 4 years, each political faction, each partisan faction will wield these newly weaponized tools against their enemies, and America is all the worse for it in the end.
Right, because now we see Democrats speaking out against ID laws, know, which is something, I mean, they have been for voting for a long time. But so any incumbent party will be for it, and then their challenger will be against it, and then that will just flip-flop. And so it's us that needs to stay consistent.
Did you hear that? She said us. It is us that need to stay consistent while they flip-flop and play with our lives.
And so is this the same kind of tracking ability, though, that the government already has if you have a passport? Because a passport can be a stand-in for a Real ID.
I mean, you make a good point. The fact is that the government already has all sorts of tools to monitor you and know everything that you do, everything that you search on the internet, who you talk to. They have all these ways to break encryption. So even your Signal chats and your Telegram chats, they can see who you're talking to. You raise a great question. What else more do they need? But apparently they do need more. They do need to know where we are at all times and basically coerce every American to register with the federal government under this new ID program, which is really novel and revolutionary.
You see? And, it is true. They got us. They got us. So easy. It's not even hard. It's not very hard. Are we dealing with a bunch of thinkers? They say for slavery, they say, oh, make them slaves. They don't think very well. Anyway, we have to think for them and stuff. Guess what, America? We are all pretty much their slaves. They just do more to the black folks. but you just signed into that slavery system. So, like he said, it's all these different technologies on how they're keeping up with us. So the real ID ain't no different, honestly. But he said just put a little bit off on it. That's all. Put a little bit off on it. So here we go.
I mean, what happens to individuals who refuse to comply? I mean, there's a lot of people in our audience that are saying, "No, I'm not getting real ID. I'm not going to do it." Do they lose their?
I'm one of them. I didn't get the CV-19. I'm not getting the real ID. I'm not doing too much of anything when the government isn't, insisting that I do it. Why? The government don't care nothing about me, for real. What's the benefit for you? If anything, you get. I ain't even going there yet.
Rights to travel freely within the United States, and would you? I mean, I know I'm asking you kind of huge question here, but can states step in and say, no, we are sort of a free of real ID state? In Nevada or Arizona, you don't need it here, and therefore come here as like a safe haven.
Well, it has been a states' rights issue for a long time, going back to 2012, 2011. There were groups like the Cato Institute and the ACLU. You had this kind of convergence of left-right interests against this, based on what you're saying now, that it's the state's right to decide how they identify each of their residents and citizens. So, what the repercussions could be for people who don't register. I mean, I think we could look to what happened with COVID. I think we can anticipate that people who don't comply with these orders will face some sorts of punishments. What that will be to be determined, but that's what I would anticipate.
Right. And what do you think? What if you refuse, but you want to drive across the border? And then, I mean, we should have the right to do that. Maybe you don't.
Federal crime,
right?
I mean, all of this is in question now. The fact is that they passed this law a long time ago with the Patriot Act, as you mentioned, but they failed to enforce it for this exact reason, because each state, like New York and Connecticut, they have different rules about this. That, Connecticut has this real ID. They've had it for a while, but New York has not. And so it creates a lot of confusion. And just like really everything that the DHS has done since 9/11, including the ramping up the security at TSA, where we all have to undress, there's no real point to it. It doesn't seem like it makes us safer. There's no evidence that it stopped any terror attacks, because in fact, we've still had these terror attacks on our soil, like in Boston, that DHS or the FBI or any of these groups failed to stop. It just seems like a way to hassle us. Gore Vidal wrote about this a long time ago. He called it the shredding of the Bill of Rights. And I think that's exactly what's happening now. It was very prescient.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. So we all have to take off our shoes because some moron, by the way, a British citizen, Richard Reed, decided to put, like some little sticky gum explosives in his shoe that, now we all have to take off our damn shoes. I feel so much safer because of that. This is ridiculous. This is just another way that the Patriot Act continues to rear its ugly head. Harrison, great to see you. Thank you so much for your perspective on this. And it seems like this is going to be the law of the land here really soon, unless we have more Thomas Massie standing up to fight against it. Harrison, great to see you. Thank you so much for your perspective.
Thanks for having me on.
I was like, what?
Okay, so did you hear it? It's like we need more people to stand up and fight. Stand up for your rights. And what I'm saying is, it's not always like, oh, you got to get out here in the streets and you got to do this and that. Stop just being so scared so easily. We, the people, have power. That's all I'm trying to get to for us to understand. But it don't mean nothing if we don't operate in numbers. So, what is this Patriot Act? Patriot Act, whatever they call it that they keep talking about. Let's understand that.
In the wake of 9/11, President George W. Bush and his administration acted swiftly to expand government surveillance powers, but the measure was almost instantly controversial. The terrorist organization Al-Qaeda coordinated 4 attacks on major U.S. landmarks. In total, 2,996 people were killed on 9/11. It was the most fatal attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. In response, President George W. Bush and his administration proposed a new law called the USA Patriot Act, or the Uniting and Strengthening America by Providing Appropriate Tools Required to Intercept and Obstruct Terrorism Act. The Patriot Act received overwhelming bipartisan support from Congress. In the Senate, the bill was passed almost unanimously, 96-1. In the House, it was passed 357 to 66. On October 25, 2001, the USA Patriot Act was signed into law without any amendments. For a bill that passed so quickly.
All right, to me, what that's saying, and like I said, this not a one person conversation. You're always free to jump in. You're always free to jump in. And nobody did nothing. All these votes against this, nobody stood up and did nothing. Just an easy crowd to push over.
It was very long and very dense. Few lawmakers read it in full before they voted for it. The law was also full of controversy and quickly became the subject of a lot of criticism and debate. Many went so far as to call it unconstitutional. The Patriot Act included all kinds of new rules and amendments, particularly ones about surveillance and national security. It included amendments to the Wiretap Act. This let police obtain court orders to spy and eavesdrop on suspected cybercriminals and terrorists by intercepting their phone calls, emails, and any other form of communication. It added credit card and bank account numbers to a government-controlled database that could be accessed with court permission. It also allowed government officials to use trap and trace devices and conduct sneak and peek searches. Trap and trace devices can trace phone calls to individuals and addresses. Sneak and peek searches are searches where officials or police can break into someone's home or office and snoop around without their permission. In other words, the Patriot Act made it easier for the FBI to spy on Americans and search their homes. Provisions in the Patriot Act also increased powers to combat money laundering, tripled the number of Border Patrol, Customs Service, and Immigration and Naturalization Service personnel along the northern U.S. border, established new terrorism-related grounds to detain or deport foreign nationals or deny them entry into the U.S. in the first place, and created a new list of terrorist crimes. But how did this translate into action? People supporting the Patriot Act argued that it increased the chances of catching terrorists by granting more government access and promoting cooperation between the CIA and the FBI through information sharing. The argument was often made that those without terrorist ties would have nothing to hide from these agencies. Since its conception, at least 50 terrorist acts have been thwarted, but it's hard to know if that's directly related to the Patriot Act. In actuality, the Patriot Act has done more to catch drug dealers than terrorists. Americans feel mixed about that. Reducing crime across the board is considered a good thing, a priority that crosses party lines. But many Americans are skeptical of the government using laws outside of their original intent. Americans have also criticized the act for being unconstitutional. In particular, they took issue with Section 215 for violating the Fourth Amendment, the protection against unlawful searches and seizures, by permitting warrantless searches. People also questioned Section 505, which allowed the government to impose gag orders, as well as investigate people based on their speech. Many saw this as a direct violation of our First Amendment rights. Others went on to criticize the act's implicit promotion of racial profiling. The American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, along with several U.S. senators, took legal action against the Patriot Act. In 2004, judges struck some key provisions, ruling them unconstitutional. Over the years, some parts of the Patriot Act have expired or been struck down, while others have been renewed. Since its inception, the Patriot Act has garnered strong reactions. Supporters argue it has allowed government agencies to cooperate, made it easier to catch criminals, and prevent future terrorist attacks. Those against it see surveillance as dangerous and in violation of free speech, infringing on the Bill of Rights with unclear results when it comes to protecting people from terrorism. So the age-old question remains, can giving up constitutional rights help keep us safe? Or does it take away liberties without giving us added protection?
There you have it. I tell you, I'm speechless. Hold on. I am posting this link into the box. If you go over to my comment box, this is what I see on my end. I hope you guys see it on your end. I have posted all the videos that we have watched. And got one more. This is for entertainment purposes only. This last one is for entertainment purposes only, okay? Because I remember when this happened, 9/11, and I was getting dressed for work. And like, what was Bush doing? So let's do that. I didn't even have that. I had to load it up, but where did it go? Where did it go? Come on here. There you go. All right, hold on. All right, so what was Bush doing? Like I said, I was getting ready for work. When that happened, this is what he was doing.
Sound this word out. Get ready.
Steal.
What word?
Steal.
Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, play. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kick.
Yes, kick. 60 on page 153. At the count of 3, everybody again. Get ready from the beginning of that sentence. Get ready.
She played with her goat in her house.
Go on.
Look, he ain't even, his mind is not there. The man just whispered in his ear that, 911 just attacked a building is like got hit. It's a terrorist attack. He's sitting there with his legs crossed, reading to all these kids. Which we can get into the school system too, because I don't know, they look kind of big. I think they're working on some kindergarten stuff or something. It seems real elementary, and they looking like third graders or something to me. But we're doing like low level stuff, I think. I could be tripping. But let me put this video in the box too. So let's keep going.
She played with her goat in her yard.
Good job, go on.
Mr. President, are you aware of the reports of the plane crash in New York? Is there anything? Talk about it. Thank you all. You can step up where we came in.
Cooperation between nations to deal with this.
They want a confirmation of United Airlines that its flight United 90.
They set the date for this before they moved the
I'm going to turn right now back to my colleague in New York, Aaron Brent.
And to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence.
All right, that was President Bush, y'all. That was President Bush. I'm getting ready to open up these phone lines for a couple of minutes. I hope you all gather good information from this. Let me know if you did. I definitely did. And I'm going to do this. Hold on. That was fair use again. And I'm going to put this here. All the rights. Let's see. All rights belong to the respective copyright holders. This use complies with fair use principles. Okay, so all the videos that I have showed, I do not have no ownership to them or none of that good stuff. So, and all of it belongs to the respective copyright holders. And I hope you all learned something from it. Meanwhile, I'm going to get ready to close up out of here. Let's do that. No, let's hit that like and subscribe. I told you all about that from the beginning. Like, subscribe. Okay. I hope everybody's remembering the things that we are learning, because there's so much more to learn, and every day we are always learning something new. So just when the government tells you something, don't be so anxious to do what they say. Most of the time it's not in your best interest. Remember that, okay? And also, we're going to close out on this. When it comes to the government, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
Can I get some extra mayo?
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
There's the Mercedes. We get rid of that stuff.
What the hell are you doing?
Morning, officers. What y'all, the second team?
We're the first team.
Yeah, we're not gonna fall for a banana in the tailpipe.
You're not gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe?
It should be more natural, brother. It should flow out like this. Look, man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe. See, that's more natural for us. You've been hanging out with this dude too long. I'm sorry, I'm just fucking with you. That's funny to me, sorry.
I'm out of here. Don't be falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Don't be falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Peace, y'all. Until next time. my friends. I'm out.